Hey, welcome to this short session today. We're going to be talking about the Louisiana classification of property. So for your civil code portion of the real estate licensing exam, we're going to kind of spend a few minutes on the classification of property according to the civil code. My name is John Enzing. I'm a licensed real estate instructor both in Louisiana and Florida. Listen, my specialty is to private tutor and prep you for your real estate exam one-on-one online. All you need is a tablet, a phone, or a computer and an internet connection, and we can link up and I'll help you clear up some things that are hard to understand, both in common law and in the civil code. You can go to privateturingsessions.com. If you log on to privateturingsession.com, you're able to schedule an appointment, okay? Now, let's get into our Louisiana classification of property. When we talk about property in Louisiana, actually property in Louisiana is defined as things, okay? That's what we call property. Remember, in common law, we call property property. But in Louisiana, we call them things, okay? Now, these things can be real or personal. When I say real, I'm talking about real things or personal things. Remember, common law would be real property or personal property. But here we call them things in Louisiana. So if I talk about real things, I'm talking about a home, condominium, land, and we use the term immovable to define real things, okay? When it comes to personal things, we're talking about automobiles, boats, an investment account, furniture in a house, dining room tables and such. When we look at personal things, the Louisiana term we use to describe those is called movables, hence the word you can move it, okay? Immovable, you can't move it, okay? Now, things are also defined as the relationship between people and things. In other words, what is the rights of ownership? What kind of interest do you have in this thing, be it real, personal, or what we call immovable or movable things, okay? So when it comes to real rights of ownership, we're talking about what does confer a person direct and immediate authority over that thing, okay, which is the ownership part. Now, let's look at some types of things. This is definitely important for the state exam. All this stuff I'm telling you is testable material. But when we talk about types of things, there's three you want to know for the state exam. One's called common things. The other one is public things. And the last one is private things. So when we talk about common things, this can't be owned by anybody. So we're talking about the air in the high seas, right? So you get out onto the high seas or you get up into the atmosphere of the air, there is no ownership of that, okay? When it comes to public things, we're talking about state-owned property, could be parish-owned property, city-owned property, government-owned, okay? We're talking about navigable waterways, could be public squares, you know, our state highways, all these things that are owned by government officials or owned by the government, but that are used as public things, okay? So in other words, their usage is by us, okay, when it comes to these type of things. Now, what is an encumbrance? You remember from common law, encumbrance limits what you can do to a property, okay? In Louisiana, we don't call them easements, we call them servitudes. This is the Louisiana term for easement. So it's the right to use someone's land, okay? Public roads is another thing you want to understand. It's subject to public use. Private roads, public can't use it, but only private owners. Now, common things, public things, private things are only owned by private person. It can be a government entity that owns it too as well, okay? But it's only for private use. Military installation, for example, is a private thing owned by a government. Otherwise, natural people like us, corporate legal entities like corporations can own private things, okay? Only used by that private person. Another couple of terms you want to look at in Louisiana for the state exam, one's called a riverbank. That's the land between normal low and high tides. I got a picture I'll show you when it comes to riverbanks and a little bit more explanation on that. And then we got corporeal things and incorporeal things. Corporeal things are things that can be touched. You can see them. They have a body to it. In other words, chair, a table, cows and horses. And you say, well, John, why are you saying cows and horses? Remember, Louisiana is an agricultural state. Okay, so cows and horses are considered things. They're considered personal things or movables, but they're corporeal and they're also animate. Okay, you may see that term animate. Animate, corporeal, means alive, got a heartbeat. So we're talking about farm animals. Okay, animate, corporeal, you can see, touch it, feel it, and it's got a heartbeat. Animate, and things, right? It's a movable thing because obviously it's not permanent. Incorporeal things, things that don't have a body. You can't see or touch it. It's only by mental process. In other words, what is an interest or ownership in a thing? Okay, so you can't see or touch it. It's more dealing with rights to an inheritance, perhaps a servitude, intellectual property. So it's ownership of stuff. Okay, incorporeal, you can't see it. Corporeal, you can see. Now, here's the riverbanks I was telling you about. So this is kind of a, we refer to these as levee systems in Louisiana. Okay, you know, you're familiar with the levee systems. So they call these riverbanks. Okay, for your state exam, this is the riverbanks. Okay, so high and low tide, you can see both pictures. These waters are connected to the marshland. So anytime the tide adjusts, these water levels go up and down. And so these levee systems are put in place for the fact to protect the community against any type of tidal surges that come from hurricanes. Okay, so we call them riverbanks in Louisiana. You're more familiar with the street term levee. Okay, but watch for riverbanks. That's what you want. That's the land between high and low tide of waterways. Okay, now hope you enjoyed our session today. Remember, Louisiana, when it comes to property, is classified as a thing. It could be real personal. And then the rights to the things, don't forget, common things, public things, and private things are the three types or the classifications of the types of things. And then understand what riverbanks is. We talked about that. That's the levee or the land between normal, low, and high tide. And then corporeal things you can touch, see, and feel. Incorporeal, they don't have a body. So it'd be like ownership or inheritance or rights in things. Okay. All right, I hope you enjoyed this session today, the short session on classification of property. Again, if you want some private tutoring, log on to privateturingsession.com, privateturingsession.com, and schedule an appointment. Look forward to seeing you. Bye-bye now.